now, just what sort of a thing is a Buddha? The Sanskrit word Buddha comes from the verb root bud, meaning to awaken or to blossom. A Buddha is defined as a human being who attains a much higher state of consciousness, who awakens from the sleep of misknowing the self and the world's reality, and who blossoms with the knowledge of perfect wisdom and the sensibility of expansive love and compassion for all living. The reason that happens is that when you know the world's reality, you realize that you are this interconnected with all the world, and there's nothing about you that isn't interconnected with all the world. And even you would you become where you identify yourself with all the world. So you feel you are all the other beings. So this then automatically gives you the feeling of their suffering, their pains, their ideas, their thoughts. They become one with you. And therefore you can't bear their suffering. Just like we ordinary people, we sort of enclosed within our skin and our nervous system, we can't bear our own suffering. So therefore, in a sense, we have compassion for ourselves, meaning we do something about our own suffering. So when you become a Buddha, actually you become even more connected to other beings, and you totally can't bear their suffering. So you become fully compassionate about them. And you are able to do that because you can simultaneously see their reality as made of bliss, made of nirvana, made of the perfection of reality, its infinite energy and infinite abundance. And then you don't ignore that they don't feel that way. So you have this kind of double mirror reflection of them so that's why you're able to be completely empathetic about them. Surprisingly, perfect wisdom comes from the thorough knowledge now of the cause and effect process. There's a famous verse in the King of Meditation Sutra that says, who understands cause and effect, that person will understand emptiness. Whoever understands emptiness will become alert to the most minute details of life. A really wonderful and has a lot of surprising things in that verse. Many of this, which we'll come to in the course of this teachings. Many of the citizens of the 16 main city-states in northern India subcontinent, around 500 before the Common Era, imagined that a human being should be able to become some sort of an enlightened being, some sort of a Buddha. The Buddhist movement, what we nowadays call Buddhist movement, originated from a prince of the Shakya city-state who seemed to attain such a condition and did have the ability to teach others how also to do so. Buddhists themselves are not in perfect agreement even today, even then or even today, about just how awake and how expanded was the Buddha, or is a Buddha in general, even about just what is the true reality of self and the world. It's such a huge movement encompassing so many countries and languages and eras and centuries and millennia. Naturally, you don't expect them all to just have one idea. But all agree that there is a higher kind of awareness that a human can develop, and that higher awareness is preferable to the ordinary awareness of the common people of the societies of those city-states or modern nation-states. The higher awareness, why is it preferable? Because the higher awareness is identifying with others as equal to the self, and therefore such persons are more kind and more helpful and beneficial to others than the person who's only identifying with themselves and who's only out for number one, as we would say today. And so societies full of people out for number one are going to be filled with conflict, and societies filled with people who are to whatever degree more altruistic will be more harmonious and more pleasant and more creative and more prosperous. In the Buddha's biography, it is said that a seer predicted his future to his father when he was a baby. The seer said that if this baby, he looked at the baby, and the first thing he did was burst into tears. And then the father was very worried, because he loved his son, of course. And he said, "Why are you crying? Is something terrible going to happen to my son?" And he says, "No." He says, if he stays in the home life, he will become an all-conquering king, a Chakravarti Raja, a wheel-turning monarch. But if he leaves home to seek a deeper knowledge of reality, he will become an all-knowing, perfect Buddha. And I think that's what will happen, and therefore I'm crying because I'm too old and I will not be alive when he becomes a Buddha, and I will not be able to receive his teaching. His father ignored that part about how great it is to have an actual Buddha, and he made every effort for 29 long years to keep the young Buddha, who he called Siddhartha, one who will achieve his aim, keep him in the home life. He built him a pleasure palace, or several of them, one for summer, one for winter, one for spring, one for autumn. He kept him, got him a harem of attendants and musicians and masseurs and girlfriends and so forth. He gave him a good traditional education, which was difficult because Buddha already practically knew everything right away, and the teachers were frustrated. He avoided any kind of unpleasant experience or sign for the Buddha. He wouldn't allow any old person or sick person to go anywhere near the Buddha, wouldn't talk about death or any of the realities of life. When he got bored with all that pleasure palace stuff, he arranged for him to choose a wife, and all of the beautiful girls came, and his 500 of them, they say they always exaggerate numbers perhaps, and then he gave them all jewels. He had a table full of jewelry, he gave them all jewels, and then finally the one woman, Yashodhara, who was a warrior princess from another city, she came late because her father didn't want her to go and be selected by the Buddha, because he said the Buddha was living in a pleasure palace and he wasn't doing martial arts and he was a wimp, and etc. So, but she finally got there, and when Buddha saw her, it was love at first sight. He took his own crown off and he gave it to her, and they were married, and they had a wonderful honeymoon for like 8 years or something. And finally, they had a beautiful son. But the prince eventually, inevitably, had these visions where he went out with his charioteer. His father couldn't stop him, but the father tried to arrange to avoid anything unpleasant. But he did, in fact, see on one trip, the first trip he saw a very sick person, and he was freaked out seeing someone really sick. Then he saw a very old person, and that also freaked him out. Then he saw a dead body at a funeral, and that freaked him out. They somehow broke through the Potemkin villages that the father was arranging. And finally, he met an ascetic who was looking calm and peaceful and seeking higher reality, a Shramana. And he became inspired, and therefore he refused to become the king, which you were allowed to do when your son is born, who becomes the crown prince, and your father retires. The poor father was shocked when the Buddha said, I'm retiring and I'm going to go to the woods, I'm going to go to the forest, I'm going to become a seeker, I'm going to attain enlightenment and really do something great for humanity. I'm not just going to be a good king. And the father locked him up, but then the Buddha escaped, went over the hill, and went out into the homeless life, as they call it, to seek the knowledge of true reality and enlightenment. So the possibility of becoming a Buddha was there in Indian culture at the time, but really very remote. There were mainly 3 aims of life: kama, which means pleasure; artha, which means wealth and power; and dharma, which meant only in those days religious duty or law or custom. It was very much a kind of imprisoning thing of staying within the roles assigned to you in the caste system. Around the Buddha's time, there was the new idea of a 4th aim, moksha, or liberation from suffering, but the first 3 aims were mainstream, and one's success in them was thought to be controlled by the gods, who had to be placated and propitiated by the karma, so-called karma, of priestly sacrificial rituals. It was a wealthy society, and so seekers of liberation were allowed and supported with a free lunch at least, although the Buddha, to be Siddhartha's father, absolutely didn't want his son joining them, but he couldn't prevent it.